So we are in Genesis again, and Shannon was saying, I thought we were looking at Exodus. Why are we in Genesis? Well, we're not looking at Exodus, the book. We are looking at Exodus, the event. And to get out of Egypt, we got to figure out how they got into Egypt. And so that's what these last couple of lessons are about. And tonight we're looking at the last of that set. So you remember that this is in 4 different parts of 3 different lessons. So this is the last part of getting into Egypt. And then next week we're going to go and look at actually the book of Exodus. But we are starting out in chapter 41 tonight. And tonight we're going to be talking about just simply how a look at God's plan and how it all came into focus about things. Now, we looked at Joseph last week, and we looked at how Joseph went into Egypt and all the injustices that occurred to him in his life. And before we get into looking again more at Joseph, then, do you have any questions about last week that came up while you were had the time off? Nope? Okay. All right. So we're just going to kind of pick up the story pretty much from where we left off in chapter 41. And so if you recall, Joseph sold into slavery by his brothers, bought and then sold to Potiphar, and so he was there in Potiphar's house. The Lord blessed him, but the wife came on to him, accused him falsely of impropriety, and so the captain of the guard threw him into prison. There, the Lord was with him, and he was kind of elevated to being in charge of all the prisoners. 2 of those prisoners, the Pharaoh's cupbearer and Pharaoh's baker, were there in jail. Had dreams. Pharaoh. Joseph asked, what's the matter? They told him about the dreams. Joseph interpreted the dreams for them. It worked out favorably for the cupbearer. It did not work out so favorably for the baker. But he told the cupbearer, when you are restored to your position of Pharaoh, tell him about my case because I'm here unjustly. And the cupbearer forgot. Okay. 2 full years passed, and then all of a sudden Pharaoh has dreams, and so he was trying to get people to interpret the dreams, and then the cupbearer remembered, oh yeah, there's a guy that I was in prison with, and he can interpret dreams. It happened exactly what, things turned out exactly what he interpreted. And so Joseph was brought to Pharaoh, interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, advised Pharaoh on what he needed to do, and then Pharaoh said, you know what? Who else better to do it than you? And so here is Joseph, who went from being a slave, a prisoner, to all of a sudden what we see in chapter 41 and verse 41. It says, so Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. He took a signet ring from his finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen, put a gold chain around his neck, had him ride in chariot at his second command, and men shouted, make way. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. So you see this pattern, right? Potiphar's like, hey, Joseph, you can just do whatever you want here. I'm going to take the time off. The jailer, hey, Joseph, you can just be in charge of everything. I'm going to just take the time off. And now Pharaoh, Joseph, I'm going to put you in charge of whole Egypt. I'm just going to have you run everything. And so it's not that Joseph was Pharaoh, but Joseph was pretty much the ruler of Egypt and all this.
Was Potiphar a governor?
Potiphar was in, let me see, going back to, I'm going to get it right. Let me see, he was an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard in chapter 39 and in verse 1. Okay? All right. So if you remember what the Pharaoh's dreams were all about is that they were going to have 7 years of plenty and they were going to have 7 years of famine, and God had revealed these things to Pharaoh so that he could go and make arrangements that would provide not only for Egypt and survival, but the survival of everybody else. And in particular, this fulfillment of God's plan and God's design. Okay? And so here's Joseph, and he's in charge. He is doing the work. He is going, and what he's doing during this time of feasting is he's just taxing people. And so people are commanded to go and bring part of their abundance into the storeroom, because there is a big abundance. And what he's doing is he's building cities to store all of this grain in. And so, there is a huge amount of surplus. Now, before we get into chapter 42, what we see is that during this time of surplus, if you look at verse number 50, it says, before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Anestha, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. That's different than Potiphar, okay? Very close spelling, different guy. Priest of On, Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, it is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household. The second son he named Ephraim and said, it is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. The reason why I want to bring this up, and we're going to talk about it more later, but here during this time period, can you see that maybe Joseph is healing just a little bit? Okay? All right. So after the 7 years of famine, then 7 years of feasting, now all of a sudden there's this 7 years of famine that's going to take place. And so what people are doing is, once they start to run out of their own grain, then what they're doing is now they're going to Joseph and saying, hey, Joseph, can you sell us something? Isn't that just like the government? They're going to take it, but then they're going to sell it back to you. Okay. So anyway, that's exactly what they did. Now, this famine is not just in Egypt. This famine is also going to be up here in Canaan. And so when we look at our map here, we've got Egypt, and we're thinking, okay, this is where the famine is, but no, it's not. It's all up and down right here. And you recall, here in Canaan, this is where Jacob and his brothers are living. So when we come on down in chapter 42, we see that the brothers, Jacob learns that there is grain in Egypt. And so you got to go get it, right? Because they're going to starve, and they don't. And so we look at verse 5. It says, 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. Who's missing? Because there was 12 altogether, right?
Benjamin.
Yeah.
Benjamin and
Joseph.
Obviously, because Joseph is down in Egypt. Okay. Why doesn't he want to send Benjamin?
Those are the only 2 sons from Rachel?
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they're both like his favorites, obviously.
They are. But if we look at verse 4, it says, Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brothers, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him. Just kind of like happened to Joseph, right?
Do you think he thought that the brothers did something to Joseph?
I don't know.
I wondered that too when I was
Maybe
reading
that's
this.
why he didn't want to send him with them.
Yeah, I don't know. It may be that, or it may be just that, he just is, now that he lost Joseph, even if he thinks that a wild animal ripped him to shreds without any help from the brothers at all, he's just thinking there's something might happen to Benjamin too. And I can't stand the thought of that even happening. And so, no, Benjamin, you're not going anywhere. You're staying right here. Period. But Dad, no, Benjamin. It's the last we've talked about this. Okay. All right. So the brothers go down to Egypt. And when they get down into Egypt, guess who they're going to see? Joseph, because after all, he is the man in charge. And so in chapter 42, verse number 6, it says, now Joseph was governor of the land, the one who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. Why do you think that Joseph didn't go up and say, "Hey, bros"? Maybe he had a little plan here. I don't know. Or maybe he just didn't want to, right? Maybe he had some lingering, resentment. Why don't you think the brothers recognized him?
That's what I was wondering.
I think God blinded them to him.
Possibly so. I'm not going to put that past.
He grew up.
Huh?
Grew up.
He was
He
old.
did grow up, because at this point he's going to be 30. And the last time that they saw him, he was 17. Okay? Now, think about Joseph's brothers. They're shepherds, right? Okay? So think about what a shepherd would look like.
Scruffy.
Smelly.
Scruffy, smelly, dirty. Okay, think about Pharaoh. Think about Pharaoh's court. What did they look like?
Sleek.
Mr. Clean, right?
Yeah.
Shave, clean,
Makeup, probably.
makeup. So, you can kind of see, hey, this is why they're not recognizing him. And not only that, but, in their minds, where was Joseph?
He had a slave somewhere.
If he was even alive.
Yeah.
Because they sold him to the Midianites to take down to Egypt, and, he could have been sold off as a slave into hard labor, and he may not even be alive at this point. And so the one thing that they are not expecting is to see Joseph there selling them the grain, right? That would have just been completely, totally out of their imaginations. So he's speaking harshly. "Where do you come from?" he asked. Well, they said, "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Now, I want you to look at verse 8 and especially verse number 9. It says, "Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him." But look at verse number 9. "Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, 'You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected.'" And so Joseph, has he ever even thought about this? I mean, would he even be thinking, man, I wonder if my brothers are going to come down here one day? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Doubt it. And all of a sudden, there they are, and he's just kind of like, and I think that in verse number 9, I think this is where maybe the Lord just kind of brought things to his attention of, oh, yeah, those dreams. You remember those dreams? Okay. Dream number 1, sheaves of grain, right? And all the brothers' sheaves bowed down to Joseph's sheaf. Dream number 2, sun, moon, and the stars bowed down to Joseph. Okay? Meaning father, mother, which is interesting because Rachel's died at this point, been long dead. And so, that might be a your questions answered type of thing of why in the world, it could be that there is a recognition of things in heaven, of things that are going on in earth because Rachel is in heaven. It also could be that it's just simply mother as far as, because there's actually 4 mothers to that whole family unit, even though Joseph only has the one, right? And so it could just simply be father, mother in terms of the dream that he had. But the point is that in verse number 9, he remembered, hey, wait a minute. Here my brothers are, and what are the brothers doing when they approached? We read it. They bowed down, okay? But how many brothers are there? 10. Okay, so what are we missing? We're missing Benjamin, and who else are we missing? Jacob. Okay? All right. So Joseph has got a plan. All right? And this plan is, you're spies. No, we're not. Yes, you are. No, we're not. Yes, you are. No, we're not. We're just 12 brothers. One's no more. The other one's with our aged father. This aged father is, they're at home. Okay, you got to prove it. I'm going to throw you in jail for 3 days. Third day, I'm going to bring, he brings them out and says, all right, I fear God. I trust you guys. I'm going to allow you to go back home, but I'm going to keep one of you here as a prisoner, and you are supposed to bring this other brother that you supposedly have back to seeing me, and when I see him, I'll let the other one go. Okay? It's kind of clever of him, isn't it? Because if Joseph at this point would have just said, guys, I'm Joseph, what do you think the brothers might have done? Oh, Joseph, it's so glad to see you. We're going to go home. We're going to tell Father all about this. Right? Never hear from him again. Okay? And so you kind of see what Joseph is thinking about all this. Okay? It's interesting that he picked Simeon. Okay? Simeon was number 2. Reuben was number 1. Simeon was number 2. Why he didn't pick Reuben? I don't know. It could be that when you look at chapter 42, they are sitting there talking amongst themselves, and they're saying, it's because we did wrong. The Lord is bringing this back around. And Reuben's like, I told you guys. And, Joseph could have been thinking, oh, well, Reuben, yeah, he did try to rescue me. And so I'm not going to hold Reuben here. I'm going to hold Simeon here. Maybe that was the reason. I don't know. But anyway, so the brothers go home. Now, as the brothers go home, Joseph instructs them to go and take their silver that they used to pay for the grain and put it in their sacks. Why he did this, I'm not really sure. I don't know if he did it because he just simply, they're brothers, I don't want to take their money, or if he did it for more of his plan of how to get them, okay? Not get back at them, but to get them, like get them down into Egypt. Okay, and so they left that night. They stopped to feed the donkeys, and then all of a sudden one of them, hey, here's my silver. Oh no, what are we going to do? Because they're looking at Joseph as far as the second in command in Egypt, somebody who could take our lives, throw us in jail, enslave us, whatever. And now all of a sudden we've got, it's like we stole from them, right? They go home, and then all of a sudden they realize, all of our silver is back in the sack. What have we done? As a matter of fact, they're thinking, the Lord has done this to us. Okay. Now, we move on into chapter 43. And as we get into chapter 43, this famine that is going on for 7 years is still going on, quite strong. And they're out of food. And so they're saying, Jacob saying, go back and buy us a little bit more food. But there's Judah. Judah saying, no, wait a minute. That mean man made us swear that the next time that we come, we're going to bring Benjamin. How do you think this is settling with Jacob?
He doesn't want to give in.
Not well at all. Jacob is not liking this. He is very upset by it. But Judah is now coming. Reuben, when they first got there, said, hey, let me take him back. Let me prove it. Let me get Simeon. But Jacob wouldn't have anything of it. But now Reuben is doing this. And he's saying, you know what? If we take a look at verse number 11, what we see is that in verse number 13, verse number 8, it says, then Judah said to Israel his father, send the boy along with me, and we will go at once so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I mean, this is quite serious. If there really is not an option here. The other option to not going is dying. And if you go, Judah is saying, we've got to have Benjamin. There's no way that we're going to ever get grain unless we have Benjamin. So he says, verse number 9, I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back here to you and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life. As it is, if we had not delayed, we would have gone and returned twice. And so he's saying, we've got to do this. And so in verse number 11, what we see is Jacob's response. He says, then their father Israel, you remember Israel, Jacob, same man, said to them, if it must be, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them down to the man as a gift. A little balm, a little honey, a little spices and myrrh, some pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put back into the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also and go back to the man at once, and may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, so that he will let your brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. And so, Joseph just realizes Jacob realizes you got to. There's really no other choice. And so they go. Now, when they get there, they go to the steward and they say, look, we did not do this. We don't know what happened. We're here to buy grain, but here's the amount from before. And they're really nervous about this to begin with. And the steward just simply says, verse 23, it's all right. Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I receive your silver. And then he brought Simeon out to them. And so then he takes them to Joseph's house to give water to wash their feet. And they prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon, because they'd heard that they were there to eat there. So Joseph comes home and they present their gifts to him. And when they do, they bow down before him. He asked how they were. They asked about their father. Is he still alive? And they, continue to talk about this and talk about their family. As and when he sees Benjamin, he is about to break it and lose it. And so, he just leaves. He, kind of washes his face. He controls himself. Then they start to eat. And being an Egyptian, he's in one place. Being shepherds, they're in a different place. They're not eating together. That's improper. But everybody's very taken aghast that they're seated in order as far as youngest to oldest to youngest. And the youngest is getting 5 times as much portions as the oldest. And so that is something that's, okay. So now moving into chapter 44, we see that Joseph is now going to continue this little ruse a little bit more. And so what he tells the steward is, go ahead and put the silver back in their sacks, but this time take my cup and put it in Benjamin's sack and send them on their way. And so he sends them on the way. And this time, instead of just allowing them to go, he sends the steward after them and catches up to him and starts to accuse them of stealing from the master, and specifically stealing that cup that he uses for divination, which I don't really think Joseph did. It's just that would have been an Egyptian thing to do. And so verse number 6 says, they caught up with them, and he repeated these words to them. But they said to him, why does my Lord say such thing? Far be it from your servants to do anything like that. We even brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver we found inside the mouths of our sacks. So why would we steal silver or gold from your master's house? Now, he should have just kept his mouth shut right then. Verse number 9, when you think about it, is just such a foolish statement. Verse number 9, if any of our servants is found to have it, meaning the cup, he will die. and the rest of us will become my Lord's slaves. Okay, now wait a minute. Let's just stop and think about this for a second. Okay? What happened without your knowledge, and really, you still don't know what happened the last time you were here? So why don't you think that something like that couldn't happen again? Why would you stop and go, hey, whoever got it, you can kill them, and the rest of us, we're just going to be your slaves? You know, there's times that you just need to just keep your mouth shut because you really don't know what's going on. And this is this is one over them. Okay, so they search the sacks, and guess what? Yeah, Benjamin's got the cup. Everybody's upset. They all get hauled back before Joseph, right? And Joseph is accusing them about stealing this cup and stealing all this money and how they're spies and everything like this. Why do you think Joseph is doing this?
To get Jacob to come.
To get Jacob to come. What do you suppose his plan is at this point? He's already kept Simeon.
Keep Benjamin.
Keep Benjamin.
Keep Benjamin.
Because that's his, yeah.
Okay? And if you keep Benjamin and say, you've got to bring your father down here to get him back, what do you suppose is going to happen?
He's
So
got
he's
to
gonna come
run.
for Benjamin.
Yeah, he's going to
Jacob's
run
gonna
there
come for
if he
Benjamin,
has
right?
to. Yeah.
Okay. But I want you to listen what Judah says. Judah, as he's pleading his case, as we take a look, starting in verse number 25, it says, Then our father said, Go back and buy a little more food. But we said, We cannot go down. Only if our younger brother is with you will we go. We can't see the man's face unless our younger brother is with us. Your servant, my father, said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, He surely has been torn to pieces. Chloe, that may be kind of, the question of, did Jacob have any doubt? Well, here it seems like what he said to Judah was that there was no doubt that's there. And I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in misery. So now, if the boy is not with us, when I go back to your servant, my father, and if my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants will bring the gray head of our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I said, If I do not bring him back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please let your Lord remain here please let your servant remain here as my Lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come upon my father. Now, recall back to Joseph. Okay? Do you think that Judah has changed? Okay, what was Judah, what was he like as far as his impression of his father back then? Did he have any care or feeling or sympathy for him? Not really, because you remember when he brought the robe, you remember what they said?
Is this your sons?
Is this your sons?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Does this sound like the same man? No. Okay. Now here's Judah, and it was Judah's idea to throw him in the pit and sell him to the slave to the Midianites. Do you think that he's got the same approach towards Benjamin that he had towards Joseph? It's different, isn't it? To Joseph, I hate Joseph. I don't care about Joseph. Let's just make a profit off him. To now, he is willing to be this Egyptian slave if Benjamin can just go home to his father. Okay? So, this is a 180-degree switch. And, this isn't this isn't Judah just saying this to Joseph, is it? I mean, he's just saying this to an Egyptian that he doesn't know and won't know.
Is this Judah or Reuben?
Judah.
Okay.
Reuben was the one that at the very first, when they came back, tried to say, we got to take him. And his father said no, and then time passed, and then Judah came up. Okay? All right. So moving in chapter 45, and by the way, chapter 45 is like a really key chapter. When we see, looking at chapter 45, then all of a sudden, Joseph, verse number 1, could no longer control himself. Before all of his attendants, he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. He wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Now, to this point, how is Joseph communicating with the brothers? Through an interpreter. Okay? He knows what the brother's saying. He can speak fluently in Hebrew, but he's speaking in Egyptian because that's who he is portraying himself to be. He sends everybody else. And man, I look at verse 3. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" Now, think about this scene, okay? Put yourself as one of the brothers, okay? Think about all the turmoil that you're in. Think about all the stress that you're in. Think about the fact that Benjamin is about to be taken away. Think about what you're going to do when you get back. Think about all these things. Here you are before this commander, governor of Egypt, and you're terrified. You're just beside yourself. And all of a sudden, he sends everybody out. As he's sending everybody out, you got to understand, he's speaking in Egyptian, isn't he? Are you wondering what is going on? Because you don't know Egyptian. And then all of a sudden, he turns to you and speaks in your own language. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" What is going through your mind at this point? Are you confused? Are you bewildered? Are you scared out of your ever-living mind?
Yeah.
I mean, he's back from the grave, essentially, in their minds.
Yeah, I mean, in their minds, he's dead or as good as dead. And yet, wait a minute, what's happening? I mean, to me, that would just, if you could go back in a time machine and be a fly on the wall, wouldn't that be something to see? Okay. It says, "But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'Come close to me.' When they had done so, he said, 'I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you.'" Okay? And so, hey, we're going to hug, we're going to kiss, we're going to have a family reunion, we're going to load everybody's grain up, we are going to send you back, but you guys need to listen to this. This famine is not over. You have got to get everybody there, and you have got to get them back here. As a matter of fact, I've got a nice little spot over here in Goshen. So on our map, Goshen is kind of this area right up in here. This would be a perfect place for shepherds to go and be there and just raise sheep, raise livestock, settle there. Pharaoh said, "Hey, don't worry about your belongings. We're going to take carts. We're going to send people. We're going to take you all. We're going to move you. We're going to have all your moving expenses paid. We're going to take care of all this to get you down here." Okay? And so off you go. And you go back home, and, here is all these Egyptians and carts and everything that's coming in. And here's the brothers coming back with Benjamin, and they've got all kinds of goodies with them. And they say, "Joseph is alive." And we need to go down there. We need to move, Dad. I mean, that would be quite something. Okay. And so as they, he saw the carts, they saw everything that was there. Then all of a sudden, Jacob's spirit revived, and he said, I am convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. And so when we go on down to chapter number 46, here is another key thing. It says, so Israel set out with all that was his, and he reached Beersheba. He offered sacrifices to the Lord, to the God of his father, Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in a vision at night and said, Jacob, Jacob, here am I, he replied. I am God, the God of your father. He said, do not be afraid to go to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again. In Joseph's own hands will close your eyes. Okay. This is important because in the life of Abraham also went down to Egypt one time because of a famine. And what happened there? Do you remember? It wasn't good, was it? Pharaoh went and took Sarah to be in his harem, and the Lord had to intervene, and Abraham had to lie, and Pharaoh was really upset about Abraham lying, but it was only because God's warning Pharaoh that Pharaoh didn't touch him, and they had to come back. I can guess that Jacob maybe heard about this. Maybe in the back of his mind he was thinking about it. But God is saying here, no, go. I'm going to be with you. Go. Because you remember what God told Abraham. Your descendants are going to go down to Egypt for 430 years. Okay? And so this is all part of God's plan, isn't it? How did God get Israel into Egypt? Well, God could have done a lot of different things, okay? But look at what God did, okay? And what I want you to see here is that one thing was necessary for the next thing to occur, okay? How did God get Israel down into Egypt? Well, because there was a famine. Okay? Now, that famine was there because Joseph was put in charge of the grain. The way that Joseph was put in charge of the grain is because Joseph was there to interpret the Pharaoh's dream. Joseph was able to be there to interpret the Pharaoh's dream because the Pharaoh had a dream that bothered him so much that even his cupbearer that was standing right there heard about it to tell him. And not only that, but Joseph was forgotten in prison, and the cupbearer had to remember that, right? Okay? But in order for Joseph to be forgotten by the cupbearer, Joseph had to interpret their dreams, right? As a matter of fact, Joseph had to be falsely imprisoned to be there. And to that to happen, he had to be wrongfully accused. And to that happen, he had to be sold as a slave. And to that happen, his brothers had to turn on him and sell him into slavery. Do you see? All these steps had to be in place in order for there to be the famine and to get people to Egypt. You say, well, wait a minute, we didn't need to do any of these things. We could have just had a famine and Joseph could have gone. Okay, but who would have been there to say, hey, this is my family. Put them over here in this area where they can live as shepherds and live as herdsmen and not become Egyptians. Right? Okay? When you look at it, all these things had to take place. Now, when you look at it, how many of these things were good things as far as pleasing and happy and fun? As a matter of fact, how many these things would we look at and say, oh, the Lord was in this and Joseph was being blessed?
One.
Okay, meaning what? Joseph put in charge of the grain?
Yes.
I mean, you think about it, he had to go through a lot. All right. Now, here's the point, and that is just simply this. We need to be sure to realize that God is looking out for us. He's working in our lives for His plan and for His purpose. How many times do we see it?
Over and over.
Well, I was going to say not that often. I mean, sometimes we're just going through life and we're going through the things in life and we're not really thinking about.
You're talking about for ourselves.
Yes.
I'm talking about, you see in the Bible, it happens.
Well, right, because we see it in the Bible because it's written down for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we can see the whole picture.
Yeah, because we can see the whole picture, right? And there are some times in our lives that it's like all of a sudden it comes into focus. Oh, I see what God is doing. But even if it doesn't come into focus, does that mean that God isn't doing anything? What do we need to have in order for all these things to take place?
Patience.
Patience and
Faith.
Faith.
faith. Faith that God is doing what He's doing.
In BSF, we're studying exile and return,
Okay.
and the catchphrase of it is God is always working for our good in His glory.
Okay. And our good is His glory. We can't just simply say, oh, God's working for our good, because, Joseph being sold to slavery, is wrongfully accused, imprisoned, blah, 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 blah. That's not good.
But it's working towards good.
It's working for God's glory, and we're going to share in His glory. And as Romans 8, I forgot what the verse is, but Paul says that the sufferings of this life are not even worthy to be compared to the glory that's going to be revealed to us. Okay? All right. You got questions and comments about that? You see, God's purpose in all of this was getting them down there. And that Joseph, when he saw his brothers and he told them, hey, I'm Joseph. He realized that and he recognized that. One of the verses to give you real quick before we leave, and that is after Jacob dies, after they go back and bury him in the land of Canaan, then all of a sudden the brothers start to get a little bit nervous because they're like, now that Dad's died, what's Joseph going to do to us? And so they appeal to Joseph and say, hey, we're going to be your servants. We're going to be your servants. And this is what he said to them in chapter 15, verse number 19. He says, but Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended harm to me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. You intended it for harm. God turned it around for good. It's a good verse to remember, because God is so powerful, He can turn any bad situation into a good situation.
There's a Slugs and Bugs song that says, God makes messy things beautiful when you put them in His hands.
Okay. We're going to have the Slugs and Bugs concert one of these days.
We are.
Read the Bible. We got the concert right there.
Yeah, I don't think that I wonder what verse that is in the Bible.
Look it up. He does a few songs that aren't Bible verses. It might be one of those.
Well, while she's looking it up, we're going to pray because we're past time. Okay? All right. Dear Lord in heaven, we thank you for everything you've done for us. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you for the time that we spent in your word tonight. Lord, we ask that you would bless your word, help us to be encouraged and help us to be strengthened so that we can continue to have faith in you and have faith in your plan for our lives. Lord, we ask that you please forgive us of our sins, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.